Rudy, I thought that today, with things starting to open up, and yet unemployment being what it is, there are a lot of people out there, and we've talked about this before, but not as in depth as we will today. But there's a lot of people out there dealing with fear. It's the worst,
Yeah,
most debilitating.
yeah, and that's how people control your mind with fear. The
Yeah.
media.
According to Adam Smith, the author of the book, The Bravest You, at some point, present or past, fear has torn all of us away from some significant accomplishment or a victory. He says you can probably think back to a moment in your life where you avoided it, suppressed it, or hid it. And if your experience is anything like Rudy's and mine, I know that none of these reactions helped you achieve anything. So Rudy and I decided that this week we were going to help you tackle your anxieties with confidence by sharing some of our own stories of how we have overcome fear. And Rudy, I think we both agreed as we were planning this today that the first rule of overcoming fear is making sure that your why is greater than your how.
You know, that's probably the key right there. Is your why greater than your how?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the reason why people don't move forward because their why is not strong, or
Right.
it's confusing,
Yeah.
or it's complex. All these fear factors that's created along the way, either through media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Friends, whatever you're watching on TV, and your why goes away when that fear factor gets there.
Yeah.
That's where we need the strength of our, I call our core, our value core, to become strong, and your moral compass becomes strong.
Yeah.
Those are the two indicators right there.
Yeah.
If you know the feeling you want and the moral compass is directed right, the why gets very strong.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's get into the individual fears. We broke them down
yeah,
into very sort of specific fears that you'll feel at different times. And the first one is that fear of inadequacy, that you're not skilled enough or smart enough or pretty enough or strong enough. How do you have anything that you have ever faced where you felt that you weren't?
well, it comes from your schooling, from where you went to school, and how they made you feel and
Well, it
act.
may be upbringing too. Maybe not school.
It's
Maybe
your
it was what
ethos
happened.
of the family, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yep, yep, all that. But it's all that. It's look, the community that you're in creates that feeling. All right, school, teachers, friends. You go into sports, coaches, teammates. You go into profession. Your not only your subordinates but your boss.
Yeah.
And you go on and on and on. So all those, when you feel inadequate, it goes way back when you were in school.
Yeah.
How you put that layer on top of your dream. People steal your joy, steal your dream by saying you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you
Right.
don't look like the one that should succeed. All those things, you start believing that you hear it enough.
Yeah.
And that's what's confusing to people. But that's what we're talking about. Now, this is deep, Joe. This is not
Yeah.
something you
No.
can, no, this is pretty deep stuff. This is stuff that's really embedded into the self-conscious and your consciousness, because we store those thoughts and they come out in the most inopportune times.
Yeah.
Especially if you get a big thing going to go, and that subconscious hits, like that button hits of inadequacies, I call it. It says, "You're not good enough to do that. You're not smart enough to pursue that. Who are you kidding?" All those little subconscious voices. You got to learn to turn those off.
Yeah. Well,
And
sometimes it's easier said than done, and I know that sometimes that feeling of inadequacy maybe doesn't come from programming, from your childhood or whatever. It sometimes can come, from well-intentioned people. Like, for instance, I remember when I was getting ready to pitch my first book, and I didn't know anything about the publishing business. And I had one of my lifelong old friends, George, hopefully he will be listening, who said to me, "Don't you think you ought to try reading one before you write one?" And so that sort of sat in my subconscious. And every time I sat in front of a prospective publisher, I knew that they'd forgotten more about publishing than I'd ever know, but I had to constantly remind myself that, I have a right to be here, and I should be here. So it's, Rudy, I love the expression, fake it till you make it.
What's fake it till you make it mean?
Well, it means that your why, as we talked about earlier, is foremost in your mind. You know why you're there. And even though in that moment, they may not understand your why, they need to feel your conviction. And so sometimes
Perfect.
just faking it and getting them to buy
Perfect.
into it until you have an opportunity to prove yourself. That's what I mean by fake it till you make it.
That's perfect answer. I love that answer. Now I'm very clear on that, Joe. Thanks for clearing that up.
Of course. The next fear is that fear of uncertainty. In whatever you do, anticipation and vision are both necessary ingredients to fight the fear of uncertainty. But there is that nagging, voice in your head, the one you have to fight, that says, "What if it doesn't work?" I mean, you must have faced that 1,000
Yes,
times.
yes. We all face that when we go on that journey, especially when we go out I call it naive faith. You jump out and just do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
You handle that fear factor when it shows up. You don't look for it. You don't worry about it. But when it shows up, now you have the confidence to overcome it. That's what that is, that uncertainty. You can overcome that just by having that attitude.
Yeah, I understand. The other one is flat out fear of failure. I mean, you
Yeah.
can try and predict all you want, but there are just some things outside of your control. And identify the things you can control in your journey and focus on those. That's what I have always believed, Rudy. You can't worry about the things you can't control, and don't even try. Just focus on the things that you can control.
So well said. The market study we do in our brain, the market study we do with our friends, and we ask them permission for for where we want to go, and they will paralyze you with that. Those
Mm-hmm.
crazy thoughts, why you can't, and what's happening, and you get all these facts all confused, and you get paralyzed. You won't move forward.
Right.
So don't do that. Just go do it. You'll figure it out as you go. Like we always said, the process changes. Have the courage to handle that head on with your belief factor, and that will
Yeah.
take care
Yeah.
of itself.
As we've said, be committed to the outcome.
Yeah,
And I'll
be
tell you
committed to
something
the
else, Rudy.
outcome.
Failure to me has always been my best teacher. I never learned anything from success. I've always learned from failure. And I know that people say that, but it's true. And I've always lived by this little saying too. The good Lord looks out for the ignorant and the persistent. And the trick is to be the right mix of both. Don't allow your ignorance of something. I mean, don't go in without doing some work. You got to put in the work. You got to do the research. You've got to understand what it is the task is that you're trying to undertake. But be persistent, as you said, Rudy. Just get in there and just do it.
My fishing. I'll give you a good example of fishing. That's the best way I can explain. My son's fishing, and he's in this tournament. So how'd you do? He said, "Oh, Dad, you won't believe we lost by half a pound. We failed." I said, "No, you didn't fail. You won because you tried. That's what fishing is. It means you're trying. Now, if you would have won, what did you learn from if you would have won that tournament? Here's what you learned because you lost. Maybe you didn't jig it right. Maybe you didn't set the hook right. Maybe you were in the wrong location. You're learning all that. That's why losing is important right now. So you can't win all the time."
So the next fear is the fear of rejection.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's another common issue that people face. And you wind up playing that game of what if. Well, what if they don't like me? What if I get fired? What if I get dumped? What if I don't succeed? It can just send you into a spiral, and it becomes paralyzing.
Well, I like the National Football League head coach. He was asked about that. He said, "Well, what about you get hired, then you probably get fired." He says, "Yeah, that's the key. I get hired to get fired, but you got to set yourself up right in the beginning, so when you do get fired, you're okay." I said,
Yeah,
"I got you," and that's basically what it is too. So always know that you set yourself up for success in the front, not in the back.
yeah, yeah. And rejection's gonna come no matter what.
No
It's like
matter
that
what,
quote.
you're going to get rejected. Look, I get rejected.
Yeah,
I said, wow, you rejected me? What did I do to you? It's not you, it's them. It's always them rejecting themselves who want to impose their feelings on you so they can feel good. That's all that means.
right. And it's when you find your passion and you put in the work, we should, that's what should give us the satisfaction, with
Yeah,
giving all
absolutely.
we've got,
All we
to
got.
to our life and to our work.
And,
Exactly.
Joe, you said it. You got nothing to lose, everything to gain. So why are you listening to someone that's never done what you did?
Right.
Or that did what you did but failed but never kept going? Why would you listen to that?
Right. Right. And the other thing I've learned to do too, because in publishing, my first book, I was blown out of every publishing house in New York City, literally every one.
I believe that.
And it wasn't until I found a publisher who, in of all places, Naperville, Illinois, and she was the one that understood my vision.
That's
So
awesome.
it's persistence, it's tenacity, it's taking those rejections, because the other thing that you can do with rejection is to look at it as a form of collaboration. All those naysayers are helping you in either.
Absolutely, 100% head right on. I
Right,
use that too for me to not to inspire me, but to motivate me to keep moving. Get up and keep moving forward. They're trying to keep you down. No,
right,
they're not going to keep you down because you said it earlier. Focus on the outcome.
right. And lastly, what I've done with no is I've turned it into an acronym. For me,
Ah,
no means next option.
I love
So
that. Yes.
that's a little thing that's helped me along the
Oh
way.
my gosh, that's a good one. It's like you and I doing our podcast, right? Same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
People,
exactly.
there's so many podcasts down there. I heard that in Hollywood when I
Yeah.
went down. Oh, we got enough sports movies. We don't need yours. Guess who's the number one inspirational sports movie of all time? Rudy. Now, if I would have listened to that bonehead that told me we have enough sports, you and I wouldn't be talking.
Now, I will readily admit that this next fear is the fear that I have the hardest time with. I can take the rejections, I can take the
Yeah,
no's, I can, persevere, but the fear of change is the one that I have the hardest time with. What about you?
yeah, we all do. That's why we need a strong foundation that
Right.
we can deal with change and have the courage to deal with it and the character, your
Yeah.
character,
Well,
and have good mentors around you. By the way, people that can push you through that change and people that can help you get through that change. So you need good people around you to help you through it. So you can't do this alone.
yeah. Well, I will tell you a very personal story. I recall when I took Jillian to the University of Michigan, my daughter, to school. And, for years it had just been her and I, and she went through high school and so forth. And I was concerned that once I dropped her off, I was just going to become a wreck, that the proverbial empty nester and so forth.
Sure.
And I remember saying goodbye to her as I was leaving campus, now back 4 years ago as a freshman. And I drove to the airport. And as I was driving to the airport, I kept expecting the emotion to hit me, and it still didn't. It still didn't. And I get to the airport, and they had oversold the flight, and they asked if anybody was willing to give up their seat. So I thought, well, I have nobody to go home to. Sure, I'll give up my seat.
Yeah.
And but they guaranteed I'd get back to LA that same night. So I went up to the desk and I gave them, my ticket. And I said, look, I'm happy to give up the seat. And they handed me a dinner ticket. They handed me $100 voucher, and they handed me a first class upgrade. And I
Ooh.
thought, you know, that could be a sign that maybe things are going to be okay. Maybe this change isn't going to be so bad. I remember finally getting home late at night, walk into my home, and again waiting for that to hit me, and it just felt right. She was as happy as she'd been or could be, you know, being there, and I just allowed that to settle, and I thought, okay, that change wasn't so bad. Now I'll, you know, I can continue. So it's amazing how, you know, we can fear something so much, and like most fear, Rudy, it's completely unfounded.
Illusion, right?
Yeah, total.
It's a total
illusion.
illusion.
So the last fear that we have to grapple with is the fear of being judged.
Wow.
You know,
That's
I
a good
mean,
one.
yeah, fear of being judged is one of the main reasons that people, you know, they won't open up in the first place. You know,
Right.
instead of being afraid about what others think, what you have to do is you have to embrace your personal story, because that's what makes you unique. You have to share it.
Yeah. And this sportscaster is judging the movie Rudy.
Hmm.
He's calling it a fantasy. I'm going. First, I got angry.
I'll
Then I
bet.
got. Then I said, "Well, let's have some fun with this." Because one, for him even saying that, he never got the message of the movie, so he's out of my league. That's the
Hmm.
guy I don't want to talk to anyhow. So I just had fun. I laughed at it. I had fun with it, and that's how you deal with not being judged. I didn't want him to judge me over the radio waves. He doesn't even know me, but you can have fun with that because you got to look at who he is. And you say, well, he's just a joker. He's just a guy that wants to have jock news. He wants to shock you with jock news. So that stuff doesn't bother me. So I'm never afraid to be judged anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Especially people will always judge you when you're going for the big dream. They will judge you and keep judging you. Even when you make it, they'll judge you. Just eliminate that thought. That was my secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to bother you, but get over it and move on.
Well, for me personally, it was shortly after publishing my first book and realizing that there were such things as customer reviews on Amazon. And there were some times where you get that one
Yeah,
star or somebody finds some nitpick. Anyway, the bottom line is that you know, it's just a part of life.
it
We're going to
is.
be judged, and but we just have to embrace. You know, like I said earlier, we have to embrace our own personal story, and we have to know that you know, most of the time that judgment, as you said, Rudy, is coming from a place of ignorance, or it's coming from a place of jealousy,
Jealousy.
right? So the important thing is to persevere.
Well, always thank the guy judging you.
Oh, really?
Well, I do. I said, thanks,
Okay.
man. I needed that. Man, I got to get a little more humble.
Well, we hope that you found some insights or some values, or maybe some comfort in the fact that you know, just the affirmation that when it comes to fear, we all experience it, and there's no reason to fear, especially now. I mean, Rudy, we've talked about this whole experience, this whole COVID experience, as being a complete reset. So that's the way we'd like you to think of this experience. Think of this as a reset. And now we've addressed fear, you've got your why, and it's important to get out there and be who you are, achieve what you want to achieve, and do it with all the conviction that you have in your soul.
Yeah, discover that why. I like that.
Yeah.
Find your why. Go for it. Don't be afraid.
So
It's there for you. Just embrace it. You'll
so
be
we
fine.
want to we want to hear from you. If maybe we've helped, tell us that. If maybe there's something we missed, let us know that too.
Joe, it's been a great show.
Thanks,
I
Rudy.
hope
I
no
think
one
so
judges
too.
us.
All right, Rudy, I'll see
All
you
right,
later.
buddy. We love you. All right, guys. Have fun. Give us that positive subscribe button. Let's rock with it. Talk to you guys soon.